Adam, welcome back to the Mea Culpa show. Lots to talk about, chaos not stopping. Let's get right into it. So Ken Martin is now stepping in as the new head of the DNC, something you and I talk about also offline. And he's stepping in at a crucial time. What do you think his top priorities should be to ensure Democratic victories in 2026 and beyond?
Well, hey, Michael, thanks for having me back. And I would say this whether or not I was on your show, but I think that right now we should be outside of the DNC and outside of the White House every day at 9 a.m. holding a press conference using people like you who know Donald Trump, know how to beat Donald Trump, know how he works, and many others. I mean, there's an incredible amount of endless talent throughout the country. And I think one thing we could also do is have almost sort of a shadow cabinet and that is public and front facing. And basically, anytime that there's something in the news, whether it's Ukraine or a plane crash, having someone who can talk about these issues in an authoritative way and be out there in front of the camera, and the press will be there every single day. We should be having a press conference every single day. And then anytime anything else happens, which is 20 times a day, we should come out to the cameras and we should speak, and they're going to carry that.
Yeah, it's true, because the other day I was watching as Jamie Raskin was at a rally. Where were you? Where was I? Where was Harry Dunn? Where was Norm Eisen? Where are the other individuals whose voices need to be heard, but who also have recognition by the American people that helps to draw media in? Because we're fighting a very serious fight right now for media attention, especially considering Trump remains, like if he's on a campaign trail, speaking at economic councils, like, for example, in Miami, before and after playing golf. He's off, holding press conferences every day at Mar-a-Lago, or they're in the White House. We need to be able to use whatever media is available. You're not going to get it on X, and you're not going to get it on TikTok anymore because of Chairman Chu and his loyalty now to Trump, for fear that they're going to take away TikTok's license to operate in the United States. You're not going to get it there. So we need to get it everywhere that we can and create, in my estimation, a whole new sort of dynamic for how individuals get their news media stories.
Yeah, no, that's totally right. And look, we're on your podcast here, MeidasTouch Network. Last 24 hours, we learned that is the number one podcast to beat Joe Rogan, made him a little bit smaller. On the 11th hour last night, there was a nice discussion, specifically about this in terms of how MeidasTouch has risen slowly over time. And that is where people are getting their news right now, which is critical and key. So I'll say two things. One, these things need to happen, but at the same time, a show like yours and a network like this is critical, because that is where Americans are getting their news from, and that is where Americans trust to get their news from. And it seems to me that a number of Americans, based on these numbers, are now finally waking up. I don't know how many times it took them to wake up. They're coming here and they're getting their news here.
Yeah, it's not just here too. It's also, for example, Substack. MeidasTouch Network has a large following on Substack. I just joined. You've been on Substack for a while. In fact, you and I just did a Substack together. Funniest is yesterday, I get a phone call from a friend of mine screaming at me saying, turn on Fox News. I'm like, I don't watch Fox News. Turn it on. So I go ahead, I turn it on. I had to rewind it for about 2 minutes before that. Jesse Waters has my interview with Jim Acosta on Substack, playing it, and of course trying to take a pop shot at me as to, what's Michael Cohen going to offer? Bad legal advice? We were talking about how to defeat Trump, how to defeat the Republican Party in 2026 for the midterm elections. It was very funny, meaning that even Fox News, even the writers for the programs on Fox News are concerned with our voice. Sure. So I don't understand why Ken Martin and others are not out there right now actively recruiting people with platforms like MeidasTouch Network, like mine, like yours, and so many others, why they're not out there recruiting people who can help to get the message out. I don't get it.
Yeah, well, I think two things. One, I think that Rupert is very scared of what's happening with you, Midas, and many others. Not only because of Jesse Waters, but also what we saw in the New York Post, where they were going after Acosta because what he did with Ben Meiselas on Substack. And that's a great place to be, right? If they are getting nervous, and if a number of people figure out how to get YouTube on their TV, Fox and CNN and others are going to lose so many more people. When it comes to Ken, I'll say this. I've known Ken for 20 years. For those that are not familiar with him, he is the state party chair for the Minnesota DFL, Democratic Farm and Labor Party, which is the same as the state party in any other state for the Dems. He also was the Association of Democratic State Party Chairs, ASDC, chair, elected by all of the chairs and vice chairs throughout the country and abroad. So there's 57 state parties within the DNC. Each one has a chair and a vice chair. That's 114 votes. Those are individuals who had elected him vice chair of the DNC previously. He knows how to win. Minnesota is a state that for a long time, many people expected to go red and move in that direction. He has continued to balance sort of the far left, and the progressives as well as the moderates. And I think that one of the issues is, like anywhere else, when you take on this job, you probably need a week or a week and a half to sort of get stuff together. But I had been in touch with Ken when he was running during his campaign, and he is somebody you can get on the phone. And I think he is somebody who is going to understand the importance in need immediately for a war room and for utilizing key surrogates like you. So I don't want people to lose hope just because this election took place. The election was a mess, like every election, in the Democratic Party. However, we're past that now, and I do expect some good things, and I'm excited to make sure that the two of you connect.
Yeah, we'll appreciate that. Meanwhile, but the DNC historically under Jamie Harrison, and anybody who is an avid Mea Culpa listener has heard me talk negatively about the former head, Jamie Harrison, who I've constantly criticized for being too slow to respond to GOP attacks, misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. How do you think that Ken should approach messaging and rapid response?
So here's the thing about the DNC, which just fucking sucks, okay? And I don't know how else to put it.
That's a pretty good way to put it.
When you have a president of our party in the White House, right? They're basically sort of is not a DNC, right? We should be able to break off and have a DNC that is run independent and is run the way it should be. When Barack Obama was in office, there was a competing organization that basically left the DNC with nothing. I think President Obama was a great president, but the fact is that OFA left the DNC with absolutely nothing. I was over there in 2016 for a couple months with Donna Brazile when she became chair when Debbie Wasserman Schultz resigned. And there was nothing. There was no staff. Donna Brazile went out and sold the Chevy Tahoe or whatever it was that Debbie Wasserman Schultz had and used that to get lawn signs. There literally was no money. And because the fundraising was all going through the campaign. And so Ken is in a unique position right now. He is the head of the party de facto, and he can make decisions on his own. He doesn't have to wait for the White House or look to the White House. This is a longer term problem that needs to be fixed after we win, hopefully in 2026 with the House. But right now, Ken doesn't have to sit around and wait for other people to make decisions. He has the ability to make those decisions himself. As vice chair, when he was running that association for the state party chairs, they were not fundraising and making those decisions into a different account, which they had the ability to because they were deferring to the White House and the DNC. So he's in a tough spot, but I think, of all the candidates, and we had some great candidates, and I think very highly of Ben Wickler and his ability to mobilize grassroots and fundraise, but Ken knows how to win, and he is ruthless. And I think that, one person compared him to a good version of Stalin. How you do that, I don't know. But I think that, we give him a few days, and I think people will be very impressed with what he puts together.
So how do you think he then needs to approach messaging in rapid response? Because the one thing
You have to swing at
Trump
every
is,
single fucking
yeah.
thing that comes at you, right? You have to make a big stink about every single fucking thing that Donald Trump does, and you cannot sit and wait around. There is no playbook that we continue to play by that ever existed. Republicans have showed that. We continue to talk about how brilliant, Rupert Murdoch and all these people are in terms of, Democrats for years have been buying TV ads while Republicans have been buying TV stations. Ken gets that. And what he needs to do is he needs to leave no stone unturned. He needs to understand that the best ideas come from outside of Washington, D.C. And we have an incredible amount of validators and key surrogates now that can step up and deliver hard-hitting messages. And we've lost everything. When you've lost everything, what do you have to lose? Nothing.
Well, yes, but there's more that could be lost, including our democracy,
Absolutely.
our democratic republic. So right now,
but we need to act like we've lost everything.
But Adam, he's got to wait. He's got a weight on his shoulder that is pretty significant. And I'm with you on that. Rapid response, proper messaging by proper surrogates, and so on is so desperately needed to move this thing forward. Because what do we see? What do we know about Donald Trump? On a daily basis, he wakes up very early. This I know from my own life experience. I was the first phone call every morning from Donald Trump, generally between 4:30 a.m. and 5 a.m. The guy really, truly doesn't sleep. And I would get the last phone call at night, somewhere between 11 to 11:30 at night. For an older guy, he really does not sleep at all. And what does he do 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning? He's sitting and he's thinking, what could he do to control the narrative of the day? And all he needs to do now is put out a post on his Truth Social, which automatically gets uploaded to X. And between the two of them, specifically X, they have like 200 million people that are going to see that post. Imagine that. So we have real serious issues that we need to overcome. Now, do I believe that the 200 million people on X and including Truth Social are real? No. There's a shit ton of bots that are on there. There's a lot of people that are out of the country that can't vote, so we don't care about them. On top of that, there are a lot of people, like I'm still on X, that do not read it, do not care what they say. We use it within which to create our own message to counter as a rapid response. That's what I believe we need to do. I believe that we need to figure out how to combat that large number of followers that they have with surrogates, again, around the country. That could make a difference.
I totally agree. And look, I know that when you use a number like 200 million, we can be dismissive of bots, but the reality is, right, every election we hear about all these accounts that were bots that had real humans following them. And when you've got bots that are pumping out disinformation, it changes the perception of voters, which changes how people vote in the ballot box. That was a huge issue in 2016. We saw that, right? They tied Hillary Clinton to, the Muslim Brotherhood and said she was part of ISIS and all this other stuff. And a lot of people believe that, right? And so if somebody was sitting on the fence and believed that, there weren't votes changed in the ballot box, but the perceptions of voters were changed, which in turn changed votes. And so what you're describing is a serious issue and something that we do need to combat. Luckily, Michael, we have people like you who go to sleep and wake up at the same time as Donald Trump and understand him, and we need to utilize those folks.
So, look, let me just sort of expand upon that. As Democrats were caught completely off guard in 2024, what do you think the strategy for winning back the House and the Senate needs to be in 2026? I mean, this is really your forte, is strategy in this. So what do you think the strategy should be to take back control?
Look, I think that the key here is, like, take a state like Arkansas, right? In Arkansas, You can't go into a state like Arkansas and say, Democrats used to have a majority. I mean, Bill Clinton has said for years the way to win back Arkansas is to win one seat and start to build around that person, right? You can't go into the state and say, this is what you should do. This is how you should run your campaign. The DCCC that runs the campaigns for the House Dems can't say, we're only going to help you if you hire these people, or this is what you do. You have to understand that people know their locality and their areas better than anybody else, the same as you. I would never come into your neighborhood and say, this is what you should do, Michael. But you also have to understand when you go to a place like Arkansas, that one part of Arkansas is going to be very different than another part of Arkansas.
Sure.
So we need to make sure that people have the resources they need to be successful, that people are not going to be criticized because they may not line up on one or two issues that the broader Democratic Party does, but they're running as a Democrat. And I think that's a big part of it, and also we need to make sure that campaigns can be successful from the start. There's so many different things that go into winning campaigns that need to be set up from the beginning. And many times people are kneecapped out the gate and never even stand a chance. And I think that's a big part of it, right? Let's make sure people have what they need to be successful, and stop telling people how to run campaigns where they live and where they grew up.
Yeah, it's so true. One of the things that you and I spoke about the other day, I believe that the key to dominating in 2026, including the handful of special elections that are due to take place, it's all about grassroots organizing. I go back to what Barack Obama did in his campaign. It's all about grassroots. I don't care what Elon Musk, Trump, social media, Truth Social, what they say. If you have a connection to a group of individuals, to people, where somebody, and it doesn't even have to be the candidate, holds their hand, makes them known, makes them feel welcomed and appreciated. People don't want to be felt used and fake appreciated only during campaign season, right? All of a sudden, Kamala Harris or Joe Biden was showing up to some small little town, right? And just making their way through on the tour. I believe that grassroots organizing is the key. My question to you is, you think that the DNC under Ken will prioritize this enough?
Yeah, I think one thing that Ken understands probably better than anyone else is something that Michelle Obama said over and over, and it's something that you just basically said and alluded to, which is we got to stop running these top-down campaigns. We got to stop putting all this money into the top of the ticket, right? The money, you and I have talked offline about this kind of stuff. That stuff doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that somebody running for school board is able to bring out 3 more voters that are going to vote for them as a Democrat. Because if those 3 people are going to come out and vote for that person running for school board, naturally, they are going to vote for the Democrat at the top of the ticket. And so, when we talked about OFA earlier, under President Obama, we lost somewhere around 1,000 seats throughout the country. We have won most of those back through these special elections and in the time since then. But these state house seats, these state senate seats, they are critical, and so making sure that people have a way and the ability to get involved, whether that is they want to run for office or they want to be part of a local committee. If you go on the DNC website right now, you can't find what your local committee is, right? You can't figure out how to get involved locally where you are. Republicans have made that available, for years and years and years, but not just that. They do a bunch of dirty stuff, right? They prop up little bullshit offices that end up, going out of business. The DNC needs to build something that is going to be there forever, and that we don't just put in the attic to collect dust after each election and then take down and act as if it's still going to be up to date, right? And I think Ken gets that better than anyone else, but we got to make it so that people can get involved and know what to do. Everyone agrees with what we're saying, but no one knows how to take an action or like where to actually plug in.
Yeah, I think a bigger problem is that they don't know, is that they're confused. One of the criticisms that I've heard regarding the Kamala Harris campaign, and I totally agree with it, under Jamie Harrison as well, there were too many messages being delivered by too many surrogates. You had, for example, Mark Cuban talking about the economy and economics. Makes perfect sense. The guy is a genius when it comes to that. But then you need everybody to stay on the same message. You can't have people talking about, a woman's right to her reproductive decision in the same breath that somebody else right afterwards is talking about the economy. And then you have somebody else talking about transportation and another person talking about space and talking about communication devices and so on and so forth. Everybody has to be on the same message for the day, because that's the key that the GOP manages to do. In one day, literally the other day, you had Marco Rubio in Riyadh. You had, what's his name? You had J.D. Vance in Munich. You had Trump at Mar-a-Lago. You had a bunch of other surrogates on different television stations, all saying the exact same thing, which is that Trump is the only person who could have actually gotten us to this table. Whether you're talking about Ukraine, right? Whether you were talking about, again, J.D. Vance in Munich at an economic summit, only Trump could do this. Trump, thank God that he is president. Somebody created, probably Stephen Miller, these talking points. They go out every single day to the various surrogates, and anybody that's doing any television, this is the topic of conversation. No matter what they ask you, you have to thank Donald Trump for becoming president again and being able to push this agenda to the American people for their advantage. Which kind of brings me to like my next question to you, which is, well, what do you think then Ken and the Democrats need to do differently to reach rural voters who have historically now been shifting towards the GOP? I mean, the urban voters, yeah, I get it. New York, California, Chicago proper, they're all going Democrat. They're remaining, even though they are increasing. Republicans are increasing their positions there. But it's rural America that the GOP is really doing well in. Right. What do we need to do?
I think it's as simple as asking rural Democrats, what do you need to be successful, and what do you need us to stop doing that is hurting you, right? And that's it. It's sort of a menu of options.
I'm so sorry, Adam. I don't distinguish between Republican and Democrat regarding rural voters. I want them all.
Sure.
I want them all.
But on that, I'm talking about the people that are in a position to help us reach out to rural voters, right? And so, the Democratic committees that are rural Democrats throughout the country who have been reaching out and begging for things for years after years. And sometimes they just want barn signs to get out their message, right? And we need to be a DNC where people go and it gets to yes, right? So quickly, it's been a place where good ideas go to die. And so I think if Ken can help facilitate making sure that these folks have the resources, and I'm not just talking about money, it could be anything, right? It could be that they want a website built, whatever they need. What do they need, and what has been hurtful to them, so that they can reach out and we can be that bigger tent and bring in new folks. I just think so many times that I'm saying rural Democrats because we're talking about the DNC, but rural Democrats who reach out to voters don't have a seat at the table. And it's an afterthought, or it's like, okay, all of a sudden, maybe this state is in play. Like, let's try to reach out to some rural voters. We just, look, for any criticism Howard Dean had over the years for screaming when he ran for president, he actually ran a really good DNC, and he did have a 50-state strategy. And I think you've got to have a 50-state strategy, and you've got to be all encompassing.
Yeah, well, it's of course, but my feeling is what Ken really needs to do is we have to look at the folks that we lost. Every election so far, like the last 5, 6 for sure, have been decided by about 1% of the vote, right? 1.2, 1.4, 0.9, whatever it might be.
Very small margins in a couple states.
Very, very small. One specific group, the Latino and Hispanic voter, they've been shifting in key areas, like in Florida. I saw the other day a Venezuelan family, a grandfather, the son, his wife, 4 kids, and they were freaking out. Why? Because they've been told that they're being deported. Now, some of them are actually birthright citizens, but the others aren't. They are what Tom Harmon is calling a mixed immigration family. It's a whole new term that they have now, created, that they're a mixed immigration family. Well, as far as Tom is concerned, Trump is concerned, this administration is concerned, they need to all leave. And they don't want to leave. In fact, the husband turned around and said, or the father to the children, wait, what the hell are you talking about? I fucking voted for this guy. You're not supposed to be coming after me. And I don't understand why they thought it was okay to vote for somebody who stated emphatically that people from your own community need to be shipped out of this country, either returned to the country of origin, some of whom who have never been there in the last, or have never been there at all, or haven't been there in like the last dozens of years. Why would they vote for somebody who is against their collective interest? Because they didn't think that he was coming after them. Now you know where they are? They're in Guantanamo Bay. They're in Panama. That whole group, the other day they showed on television a camera, a helicopter news crew took photos of people basically looking out of their window at a Panamanian hotel. And the reporting was that these folks in the next day or so are all being deported to an internment camp in the Panamanian jungle. I want you to think about the cruelty of what you're doing. You took people out of property, out of their homes or a secured place for them in America. You put them into Panama, and now you're going to shift them from that Panamanian hotel, which they don't want to be at anyway, to an internment camp in the jungle.
What do you do? This is on everything, right? This is probably a bad example compared to the one that you just gave, because that is devastating. But look at what they're trying to do with the purge of the FBI agents. How many of those agents do you think voted for Donald Trump? More than one, right? Yep. And so they're going after everybody. They're going after lots of people who voted for him.
And my question to you, Adam, is how do we get them back?
Well, you would hope that they would wake up and come the fuck home, because this is pretty, problematic.
No good. We can't wait for them to open their eyes. We need to throw like a bucket of ice water on them when they're sleeping to wake them up, because they are sleeping. Latino and Hispanic voters, even black voters who are voting for Donald Trump, women, where Trump's administration, through his Supreme Court in the overturning of the Dobbs decision, they have taken away women's rights. They have told women that you are not smart enough, you are not qualified enough within which to make decisions over your own reproductive decision making. This to me
totally. But if someone loses a family member and that family member is shipped away and they're going to vote for Republicans again, and an FBI agent loses their job and they're going to vote for Republicans again, maybe this two-party system, which is the oldest, in the history and was a nice little experiment, is done. And you'll start to have different parties pop up, like when Yanukovych was overthrown in Ukraine, Paul Manafort's buddy. I don't know. But I mean, if the DNC and the Democrats can't bring these folks in after what's happening right now, and how your question is how you do that, I wish I had all the answers. I think I have some good ideas that I hope to see happen, but I have no fucking idea.
See, it goes back to one of my earlier questions to you about the importance of grassroots organizing. Me personally, I would start to send people, surrogates, Democratic surrogates, into these communities and say, we understand what you're going through, but you made the wrong decision before. And we need to bring them back. I'm with you on this one. How could anybody who is military or anybody in your family that's military vote for Trump after the disparaging comments that they made? How could any police officer do the same thing? How could anybody who has a member of their family who is a civil servant, works for government, after this unilateral decision to cut the workforce by millions of people, how could you possibly vote for somebody who is this reckless? And so far, none of the things that they are claiming that they are doing, their budget cuts and so on. I saw a report today that says with all of the cutting that Elon Musk and Trump have done so far, the American taxpayer, each American taxpayer has saved a whopping $30.
I mean, if that, because half the people they're getting rid of, they're immediately figuring out, oh shit, we fired the bird flu experts. Oh shit, all the guys that, know everything about our nukes. Where do we find them? To your point about sending folks out locally in grassroots organizing, I agree 100%, but also counter to conventional wisdom, there's a lot of incredible people that need lifting up that have these stories. One instance, right, is Hadley, the young woman in Kentucky who was raped by her stepfather, who Andy Bashir shined a big bright light on during his campaign, and her message really resonated throughout Kentucky. And then obviously she became a national surrogate. So I think we've got incredible folks that can help in these states. And I think there's a lot of folks in these states that can be very helpful to us nationally.
So we're a month already into the new year and things are really stressful. Family, the job, maybe life. Maybe you're in search of something to help you take charge of your life. But most importantly, you need to do it with full mental clarity. Embrace this February and embrace CBD with VIA to experience the powerful benefits of hemp without the high. Trusted by over 500,000 happy customers, VIA is the Swiss Army knife of wellness, dedicated to harnessing the natural benefits of hemp to create high-quality wellness products. VIA's collection of THC-free products, it combines minor cannabinoids like CBD, CBG, and CBN with botanical supplements for targeted effects that you can actually feel. So whether you're looking to improve your sleep, your focus, or relief, VIA has something for you. Now, I've tried the THC-free gummies for sleep, and let me tell you, anyone who knows me knows that I've had sleep issues my entire life. I mean, getting up at 4 a.m., these 4 a.m. wake-ups, they just don't cut it when you're my age. I mean, for God's sakes, where has this product been my entire life? VIA is also well known for their award-winning THC, THC-free gummies, vapes, THCA flower, soothing topicals, and calming drops, all of which are crafted with the highest quality hemp sourced from trusted, independently owned American farms. And the best part, VIA legally ships to nearly all states in the U.S. in discreet packaging directly to your door with a worry-free guarantee. And get a load of this, no medical card required. So let me share some points about VIA. First, they're an industry leader with over 500,000 customers served. Another, they're made in the USA, farmed and crafted with care in the United States. And their award-winning service, experience their top-notch customer support. They also give you only quality ingredients that are sourced from the finest hemp for your peace of mind. Plus, they're also lab tested and certified. And lastly, affordable, and they're accessible. Their premium products will fit your budget. So if you're 21 plus, check out the link to VIA in our description and use code COHEN, that's COHEN, to receive 15% off. And if you're new to VIA, you'll get a free gift of your choice. And after the purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. So please help to support our show and tell them that we sent you. This year, enhance your every day with VIA.
But we need to help them get out the word, and we need to make sure that they can go places and they have a platform to be on, and then they're on these shows. There's a lot of people that no one's ever heard of that are out there every day struggling and working with these and want to tell their story. And so that's another, to your point, the DNC should have a vehicle in which people that have a story to tell can share it. They can share their videos. They can tell their story and say, hey, I want to be helpful locally, nationally, and do that, because that's the only way we're going to do it. And these are very powerful voices. Some of them obviously were used during the campaign, but they weren't. That's if you're watching national television, right? We need people going to, the local lodges and other groups throughout the country talking about this. I was at a diner yesterday, and both tables next to us were talking about the price of eggs. I don't think any of these people voted for Kamala Harris, and I don't think any of them have any plan to vote for Democrats in the future. They still don't fucking get that the guy that said that egg prices would go down under him has now made it so that there really just aren't any eggs.
Well, how could there be? Because every bird with the bird flu is being destroyed. So you're losing, 17 million egg producing chickens. I mean, yeah, I get it. I totally get it. But you have to ram it down their throats so that they do finally get it. That when it hits them in their pocket, they need to understand that the only way out is to go to the other side. But a bigger problem than even all of that is dark money. Dark money in politics has been a real serious issue. And the GOP mega donors, they're playing a huge role in elections. Not only are they playing a huge role in elections, they're also playing a huge role in the confirmation of people that Donald Trump nominated for cabinet positions that are wholly unqualified for the job. But they don't want to lose their power. They don't want to lose their job. And so what do? They capitulate. And I said early on, other than Matt Gaetz, the only person who is not going to be confirmed, and not because of Trump, and not because of the threat of having a primary against them, but because he was so harsh when it came to McCarthy, and people really liked McCarthy on both sides of the aisle. They may not have agreed with him, Democrats, but Republicans, they liked him a lot. And the attacks by Gaetz on McCarthy made him absolutely unelectable. The question I want to ask you as a strategist, how can Democrats counteract this absolutely grotesque financial imbalance effectively?
Look, it's Citizens United is not going anywhere, right? So unfortunately, you can be against Citizens United, but Democrats are not in a position to unilaterally disarm, and not. You got to have everything on the table. And just one more point, something that Republicans have done really well for a long time, and you know this, Michael, is that they reach out to students at a very young age, right? And they have chapters. Most people make up their minds in terms of what party they're affiliated with in high school. Democrats should reach out, and make sure that high school groups are being propped up and have the support that they need. But the other thing is that kids, whether they can vote or not, they're in a unique position to talk to their parents, and especially daughters. And I think that it is really time that people step up and sit down and convince their parents who are voting against them and voting against their choices to do the right thing. And I think that could be a very powerful piece in this next election.
Yeah, I'm with you. In fact, my next question I was going to ask you is whether or not you think that the DNC is doing enough to energize young voters and Gen Z. As far as I'm concerned, I can't believe that Gen Z in record numbers went Republican. You find that Gen Z today, everybody knows somebody who's part of the LGBTQ plus community. Every young man understands the significance of the overturning of Roe. Every young woman understands that she now has less rights than her grandmother in this country and losing more by the day. It blows my mind when I see, I don't give a shit if it's in Texas. I don't care if it's in Florida. I don't care if it's in New York. When you start seeing, right, Gen Z for Trump, right? You start seeing these young fraternities, the boys acting as fucking despicable as the commanders in the TV show Handmaid's Tale, the commanders, where they think that this shit is cool, that, you know, white male power, even at the expense of their girlfriends, even at the expense of a sister if they have one, or a cousin, or a friend. I cannot imagine what the Republican Party is offering them other than hatred and cruelty that would make them want to vote in that way. So my question I was going to ask you, what do we do to stop them from becoming disengaged as far as the Democratic Party is concerned for the 2026 midterms?
Well, I think the key is you gotta have people that age at the table, right? And you and I have talked offline. Obviously, the DNC membership, 448 members, just elected the youngest vice chair in its history, and David Hogg, who is Gen Z, and obviously a lightning rod and probably a big fundraising for the right. However, somebody who has a huge following and inspires a lot of his fellow Gen Zers. So I think that he's going to be somebody at Ken Martin's side who is, trying to come up with a plan on that front. But I think the key is that, like, the gray hairs, like, I turned 40 this year. I can't sit here and tell you how we reach out to those folks. Most of the stuff that, my son uses a word here or there. I learn something new every week. But you need people that age that are talking to the party and saying, this is what we need to reach out, and this is what you can do to help me reach out to those folks. I think that's the only way to do it. We spend so much time trying to kind of act like, we've got some secret recipe or something. You can't talk to somebody, who doesn't understand the way that you talk.
Well, that's true. But one of the things, for example, that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were so interested in pushing is the debt forgiveness, the student loan. And yet, that is something that benefits each and every one of these college students. That also wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to swing, right, all college age students from voting Democrat. So it kind of brings me to a question that I would love to ask you. What do you think are the three key issues that Democrats must focus on to win over both independents and moderate Republicans in 2026? I think it could happen. I have a strong belief that we independents more so, but moderate Republicans who are fed up, that we could end up pulling them in 2026.
Okay, I'm not going to give you a bumper sticker label here. What I will say is this: it's just the basics, right? Like, people want to be able to put food on their dinner table. They want to be in a position where their integrity exists, and they have enough money to invite their neighbors over for dinner, and that they can leave this country in a better place for the next generation of their family members than they found it. And the dignity that goes into all of that, I think, is key and really important. And so, as they used to say, right, it's the economy, stupid. But I think, we need to really focus on just the fact that, like, there's a lot of people out there that are struggling, and they're worried whether or not their heat's going to work. Right. This is the stuff that most people care about. And if people are worried about, electric vehicles, they're probably voting for you, unless they're, quote unquote, the folks that were, we saw in Michigan that what was the term, unaffiliated or whatever it was. I mean, are they happy with what they're seeing now? So I just, it's the basics, right? People want the American dream. They want a little fence. They want a roof over their head. They want to have a little bit of money in their account and not worry if they're going to be able to pay for that roof, 2 or 3 months down the line. And I think we need to make sure that like we get back to sort of that original spot, and we need to stop trying to be, talking like, we all went to Harvard or something like that. People are so tired of that shit. Just turns everyone off.
Yeah, that's what Trump is capable of doing. He's able to speak to the silent majority in their own bumper sticker language. Speaking about his messaging, his economic messaging, despite it being completely misleading and many times just patently false, he manages to get it to resonate with many voters. My question to you is, what are the Democrats going to do to counteract this?
Well, it's a great question. What I know is that that Ken has won over and over and over in Minnesota, up and down the ballot. And so we're going to have to see. Right now, he just got in the job, and he's figuring out what assets are there, what's not, and he's talking to a lot of people. And obviously, you and I wish that, a war room had been set up the day after the election that didn't exist before the election, right? You and I wish that something had happened the day after or the night of the DNC election. But I do have faith that is coming. And, I don't, how many days has Donald been in office? 28 or 29?
No, I think 32 now.
32. Give Ken a couple days, and you and I will regroup on this topic. But I've said online that, if there's one person that I do believe not is just the person to do this, but understands that he can be the catalyst to bring in the Michael Cohens of the world, it's Ken. And I really think that the DNC made the right decision on this one.
Okay, I'm with you on that. I hope so anyway. One of the other issues that obviously we've been talking about is, like when I was talking about the Venezuelans that are now, right, or the San Salvadorians that are in Panama, those that have already been shipped out, Muslim Americans that were angry at Biden over the Israel-Hamas war, union leaders, despite Biden and Harris walking the picket line with them, first time ever. Trump's new tariff policies are causing real problems for unions in terms of union labor being unemployable because construction is now down, and with Trump's new tariff on wood from Canada, again, this all impacts them. The funny part is that many of these voters, like the ones I was talking about, they didn't believe that Trump's policies would impact them personally, like that Venezuelan family I was talking about. Mm-hmm. How do you think that Democrats need to better communicate that Trump's policies hurt working and middle-class Americans, are going to hurt them? How do Democrats better communicate with Gen Z and millennials that these policies hurt them or will hurt them once they finish school? That, to me, is the key to success in 2026.
Well, I think you need people to stay in line. And if you look yesterday, the president of the Teamsters came out and actually said live on Fox News that he was okay with the firings that were happening in the federal government, which is fucking crazy, right? This is the guy that had the scab shirt on or whatever. I mean, you can't just have Donald Trump come in and then pivot and embrace everything he's doing, because the people that are looking to you, in which you're part of a union that already maybe is a majority conservative, what message are you sending your members? I just like that. I think that's part of the problem, is that like we actually have to stick together to do this, and we can't have people just bullshitting back and forth with whatever different station that they're on. It goes back to what you said. You have to be on message. You never see the Republicans come out with the Stephen Miller talking points and that memo leaked, right? But they managed to get those messages out, that message out, every moment and every time to everyone that needs it. And just the way that you said, I thought actually it was really smart the way that you talked about it, because you don't normally hear them in different countries, Rubio and Vance. Normally you see it throughout this country, where you've got the governor of Texas and the governor of Florida saying the same thing 3 minutes apart. But obviously, now they're all over the world. But that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Well, I think it goes a little bit further. And, as the hour comes to an end, it's going to make this the final question to you. But one of the things that the GOP did very successfully is that they used fear tactics. Everything was a fear tactic. Crime, immigration, woke culture. Trump doesn't even know what woke means, but yet he uses it in sentences. We know that he doesn't know what it means because in many occasions he was using it incorrectly. What do you think is the best strategy to neutralize these attacks? Because when you start having people turn around and parrot, oh, well, I don't want a transgender female competing with other females in sports. Trump goes ahead and he actually puts out an executive order that bans it. Immigration, look at what he's doing now, and crime. What do we need to do to neutralize these attacks that somehow or another he has convinced people, whole swaths, whole groups of people, Latinos, Black, young, the youth, and so on, that these issues harm them on a day-to-day basis?
I couldn't agree more. We need to be authentic. And I think that we are members of a party who spend way too much time poll testing things, spending 3 days to figure out how to respond to things. We need to respond to things the way that our head and heart tell us to. We need to be real, and we need to be outraged, and we need to say, you're going to lose your fucking house because of this guy, or you want to live in Russia? That's what it's getting ready to look like. You got to be honest with folks, and you got to have passion, and you got to tell it how it is. You can't worry that you're going to say the wrong thing. In this environment, there are no scandals. Everything is dead an hour later. And you just got to go out there and have these real conversations and send the Harry Dunns of the world out there to talk to people, to talk about what it was like to be a law enforcement officer who was attacked on January 6th, Michael Fanone. The party of law enforcement, won't even put up a plaque to thank me that's been sitting there for 2 years. The House Republicans won't put up a plaque to thank law enforcement. It's still sitting there. Is that the party of law enforcement? And I think that these people need to communicate that with these different groups. And I do think that it'll have ramifications, because the actions that are happening right now, as you said with the family you met in Florida, are affecting everyone everywhere. It doesn't matter if you live in McLean, Virginia, or if you live in, Western Iowa. It's affecting everybody.
Yeah. And I think we also need to pull apart the fake fear tactics that are coming out. That's a little bit more of a conversation which you and I will have both offline and hopefully again here on Mea Culpa, where you turn around and you explain to the youth legitimately what woke is all about, what banning books is all about, what unconstitutionally remanding a citizen to prison because they refuse to waive their First Amendment constitutional rights and publish a book is all about, comparing it to the Navalny's and Putin, and comparing it to the Kim Jong-un's, right? Or comparing it to the Mohammed bin Salman with the Jamal Khashoggi matter and more, right? You need to sort of give them real life experiences like the Michael Fanones, like the Harry Dunns. Look, Adam, let me thank you so much for joining me on Mea Culpa. Let me tell you, your friend Ken would be very wise to bring you and others on board in order to create and navigate a strategy that somehow or another the DNC has just lost, over the course of the last decade or so. So
Well,
thank you for
I
joining
appreciate
me.
No, thank you, Michael. I just want to say thank you for being authentic and real, because someone like you could easily just jump ship. Look at Michael Avenatti. Look at what he's been tweeting, right? And you
Right.
have been true all along, and I'm grateful for everything that you do.
Thank you, my friend. See you soon.